my name's Savannah and today I'm going to be sharing 8 reasons why giant African land snails might not be the right pet for you. So as you can see, I do have giant African land snails myself. These are of course just shells of pre-existing ones that I did have once upon a time, but I do still have giant African land snails and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have in the comments about them. Today is more focused on the cons rather than the pros though, because as we know, just like every pet, we want to do our research before we get something new, and these guys are particularly unique when it comes to care and legalities, so we'll be covering that today. As you can probably tell from my other videos, I do love giant African land snails, and personally they are a great pet for me, but I do hear a lot of people talk about getting these as pets, particularly school teachers and mums for their children, and don't necessarily understand or maybe just haven't researched what really does go into these guys. So point number 1 for these guys is that they are highly invasive as a species. They can wipe out farms and they have a really negative impact for the environment, unfortunately. It's really strange because our classic garden snail doesn't have that much of an impact and can actually be a benefit for gardens, whereas these guys, you can see how big they can truly get. So just one of these can munch through a lot of crops in one day, and because they reproduce so quickly and lay hundreds of eggs, you can imagine how many of these it would take to just wipe out one farm. It'd be pretty quick, and of course that's not necessarily a bad or negative point if you're just going to have them as a pet, but it does mean that if they escape or you get bored and just want to release them, that is illegal. So the second point is that they are an illegal species to have as a pet in some areas. If you're in the UK and you want one of these as a pet, you're going to be nice and safe because they are legal here. However, if you're located in the United States and some other areas, then these guys are illegal. And you also have to be really careful about where you're getting them from, because you can't order them illegally from America if someone's selling them. So you really need to look into where you're getting these guys from. I can make a video on where to get a giant African land snail, but I want to be really careful about how I make that video because I don't want to promote certain sellers. But then again, if you can get your hands on a rescue snail, because there are so many, that would be more ideal. Now, the third point is one that is less likely than the other points that I will be sharing today, but they do have the potential to carry parasites like rat lungworm, which can be transmitted to humans. I've never experienced this with any of my snails, luckily, but it is something that can lead to bad infections, especially if you're buying these snails for younger kids and they already have the parasite in them. I can touch on this in another video with lots more details, but let's go on to the fourth reason. Okay, so this fourth point is probably the most important of all in my opinion. If you're not willing to give the snails specialised care requirements, then I'd say don't bother getting them. It's particularly tricky for mums that maybe want to buy their children a snail and think just whack them in a bit of soil with some leaves and give them some cucumber. If you think it's that easy, they're definitely not the right pet for you. If you don't give them humidity, temperature, the right diet, calcium, the right soil, even to the point where you give them the right amount of soil, like they're going to have lots of health problems and it's not going to be worth having them as a pet, and they certainly won't last long. So you need to think about heat mats, measuring temperature, thinking about where you're sourcing your soil from, where you're getting your cuttlefish from. So think about that before getting a snail. My fifth point is based on their size. So as you can see, this one got pretty big. They can get to about 20-25 centimetres depending on species. But that might be a good thing for you guys. I quite like that. It can be quite exciting. But it does mean that you are going to need to keep upgrading the home. You can't start with a massive home because they won't be able to find their food. So there's costs involved here. And they can also live for a very long time, maybe like 8 to 10 years, even 15 if you're lucky. So you need to think they are a long-term pet that can grow quite big. My sixth point is a little bit of a weird one, because when you think about a snail, you think they're pretty easy to care for other than the points I've already mentioned. But these guys can actually be quite high maintenance. So that's because there's a lot of cleaning involved with these guys. They slime everywhere, they do poop a lot because they eat a lot. So if you're not willing to clean up the display, then I don't recommend them as a pet once again. You can do things to counteract this, so you can get a biodiverse display, but that means that you'll need to be putting live insects in there, which I do have a video about if you are interested in doing that. But maybe if you're looking for a nice simple snail, you might not want to get a whole colony of insects to clean up all their poops. So it depends how far you're willing to go. So this next point is a little bit of a weird one, because I could definitely argue this, but they do provide limited interaction. So it depends. For me, I do like picking them up. I think they're a great pet to watch, they're really interesting. But maybe if you're a family and you've got a snail, or you're a school and you've got a snail, you might get this, the kids will be excited in the first couple of weeks, and then they'll realise they don't want to pick up a slimy snail every second of their day. These guys do also go into hibernation, so they might not be active for half the year in the cold. And they do sleep a lot. They are nocturnal, so they come out in the evening normally to eat. So that could be another reason why they might not be a super interactive pet for you. I would say with that though, it really depends on you as an owner and how much you want to get them out. Also, you have to be careful when handling these guys, which I touch on another video, but I can certainly talk more about that. I realise I'm showing you the shelves a lot like this, but it's just because I want you guys to see how pretty they are. And now let's get on to the last point, and that is ethical concerns. Now, this point is more of an overarching point that covers the other 7 points, but I think it is still important to have as a point on its own, and that is because you are going to get certain people that are going to view having snails as a pet, one, as very strange and bizarre. Who cares about that though? But second of all, that it's not natural. They are an invasive species, so people do frown upon them. A lot of people don't like these slimy animals, so you just have to be willing to take that into account when talking to people about these pets that you do have. If you can source them ethically by going to rescue areas or real good breeders that know what they're doing, I would recommend that over just Googling one and finding one on Amazon or something like that. I really wouldn't recommend that. I know that you could go down the quick route and get a pet that easily, but please try and avoid that. Know what you're getting yourself into. You don't want to get a snail with parasites as well. So guys, that is all my 8 points on maybe why you shouldn't get an African snail. Hopefully you've watched this and realised, oh, actually I am cut out for this and all those points don't bother me. If that's the case, happy snail owning. That's a really weird thing to say. But yeah, I've had my snails for 5 years now and I really do love them as a pet. I think they're great. Just make sure you do your research and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.